All right, so everyone should be able to see my QuickBooks screen now. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is, before we go ahead and import your chart of accounts as well as any additional lists that you're using, we do require you to create a liability account just to post your transactions to when accounting for RAM credit card transactions across your entire business. So we'll need this liability account to be in your chart of accounts, as well as a bank account, accounts payable account. So we can go ahead and create this liability account together. All right. So two important things to note with your QuickBooks access here. You want to make sure that, number one, you are an admin in QuickBooks Desktop. And number two, you want to make sure that you're signed in as single user mode. So if you're not doing this with me right now because somebody else is on single user mode, when you do plan to get started with this connecting accounting, make sure you send out a little message, let others know that you'll be using the single user mode to get RAM set up. All right. Best way to check that is to go to your files up top here. If it says switch to multi-user mode, that means that you're currently on single user mode, so stay put. And if it says switch to single user mode, you'll click on that and it'll switch you over. All right. Excuse me. All right, so the next thing you'll do is create that RAMP liability account. The best way to do that, wonderful sounds. Best way to do that is to open your chart of accounts here. And then we're going to add an account. So on the bottom left, click on the drop down where it says account. And then scroll up to new. And this liability account will be a credit card type. So we'll select credit card and we'll click continue. You'll want to name this RAMP card. And you could add a sub account, that's optional. Same thing with the description and the numbers here. For today, I'm going to leave as is, just stick to RAMP card and then click save and close. All right. So now you'll see I have my RAMP liability account created. It's a credit card type. I have my other income expense account. This is for where my cash back will go, and we'll get into this in a little bit. I also have my operating account listed here, which is my main bank account that I'll be using in RAMP. And I also lastly have an accounts payable account over here, and this is where my bills and reimbursements will sync to. All right, again, we'll work with these specific accounts in just a bit, but it's important that we have them in our chart of accounts. All right, so now that we went ahead and created a liability account for your RAM transactions, we'll now import your chart of accounts and any additional lists that you're using to code your transactions. So in order to code your, or in order to import your lists, what you'll do is go to File, Utilities, go to Export, and then click on List to IIF Files. Let me drag this down here. Perfect. All right, so with RAMP, you're only able to pull in 4 main lists. So you're able to pull in your chart of accounts. You're also able to pull in your customer list, your vendor list, and your class list. So that is the only 4. If you are using, job type or item or any other lists here besides the 4 I just mentioned, then you'll have to use our universal CSV connection process to get connected to RAMP. Our universal CSV process will still allow you to export an IIF file from RAMP and import it into RAMP, so no worries on that. It's just that with the QuickBooks Desktop connection, we only support the 4 lists that I mentioned, which is chart of accounts, customer, vendor, and class. Of course, if you're using all of these lists, then you'll want to check them to import. And if you're not using something like customer or class, you could uncheck them and only pull your chart accounts in vendor if you'd like. So I'm going to pull in all four so you can see what that'll look like. I'll press OK. I will save my file. I'll just name it RAM, and I'll save it on my desktop so it's easily accessible. And now we'll click Save and press OK. And now our IAF file is ready to import into RAMP. All right. Before I go ahead and switch over to RAMP, as we're done with everything in QuickBooks Desktop for now, I'm going to take a quick pause for questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop it into the chat now. If you're good to move on, just give me a little thumbs up. I'm just going to keep my eye on the chat here. All right. Sounds like everyone's feeling good. All right, so now we are ready to import this information into RAMP. I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen to the RAMP platform. If you want to log in, feel free to do so. Here you go. So yeah, feel free to log into your own RAMP account and follow along, or you could definitely follow along when you get the recording of this session. So let's go ahead and click into the accounting tab here. Oh, let's see if this works. This was just working. Let's disconnect once. I'm going to refresh. All right, so what you'll want to do when you get to this accounting tab is go ahead and click Get Started. This will open a window to the right here where you will then select QuickBooks Desktop as your accounting provider. As I mentioned earlier, if you are using the items or job type or any other list besides the main four I mentioned, being chart of accounts, class, customer, and vendor, then you'll want to use our universal CSV connection, which you can do through other providers here. Just type in QBD like this and select this, and it'll let you upload your lists. But for today, we're going to stick to QuickBooks Desktop. So this is what it'll look like if you have some transactions going already. If you do not have any transactions as of yet, your page will look a little more different. It'll probably just have, this column, and above everything you see will be the same, but you will not see anything below Wednesday here, Wednesday and below. So now that we have connected here, let me actually, part of this is acting a little wonky, so let me see if I can take care of this on the back end. Let's see. Let's sign out once so you can get the perfect and best view here. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I appreciate this. Okay, let's try and see if that worked. Again, thank you guys for bearing with me here. Okay, so now I should do the job. So again, you'll be in your accounting tab, click Get Started, go to QuickBooks. There you go. So this is what the next step should look like as soon as you click into QuickBooks Desktop. All right. The first and only required step will be to import your chart of accounts and your lists. So we'll click on that. This is asking if you've created a liability account already, which we have, so we can check this off. And now we're going to upload our IAF file containing our lists here. So this is the file from earlier that we saved from QuickBooks. So we'll pull that in. And here you can see all of my chart of accounts showing here. I can click show all, they'll show here. I have my ramp liability account here. All my vendors are showing, my class is showing, my customer jobs is showing, looking great here. If you guys do want to import another IAF file because you see something missing, you can always click import a new IAF file and put in the new file here. So now we'll click save and continue. And now it's going to ask you to select the liability account here, which will be ramp card. So you'll select that and then click save and continue. This little green check mark here indicates that you have successfully uploaded your list. So you don't have to upload your chart of accounts and lists anymore. This is already in ramp now. So we could click start coding expenses. Perfect. Now this will take you to this page. And then again, if you don't have any transactions, you'll probably see everything from this date row here with everything here and above. If you do have some transactions, it'll look very similar to the page that I am on now. All right. So now in order to complete the accounting setup, we'll want to configure to export, which is this button here. All right. So configuring to export lets us set up all of our default accounts. This is, first one here is our statement account, where anytime you have your statement ready to reconcile your transactions, you're going to want to export this and import it into QuickBooks. So you'll select your main cash account for this 1873. For me, it's an 1873 bank account. For you, this will be your bank account listed here, and you'll select your cash account associated with your bank account here. So this is my operating account. We'll click on that. Next, you'll select a credit card liability account. This is the ramp card that we made earlier, so we'll select that. This is where your ramp card transactions will get exported to. Next, we have a cashback account. Since you essentially earn 1.5% cash back with ramp, it looks like additional income for your business. So you'll want to put this in either expense or revenue account. And this could go in something like other income, miscellaneous income, bank services, fees, like different options here depending on where you'd like to put it. I'll put mine under other income. And now continuing down to scroll, if you are planning to use reimbursements later, I do recommend just setting it up now so that you don't have to come back to this portion later on. So this here is asking for the same cash account that we selected earlier. So this is our operating account. And now this is asking for an accounts payable account for your reimbursements to export to. This, you can use an existing AP account. So I'll click on the drop down and select that. And same thing with bill pay. If you're planning to use it later, set it up now. Just get it done now, because then you'll have to come back into this section and you may forget where it is. So from bill pay, you'll select your bank account here, and you'll select the operating account for it. And then AP account for bills, you can use an existing accounts payable account, just like we did for reimbursements, as this is where bills will export to. So now we'll click Save Changes. Now you'll notice that this button says Export, and we'll go into why it says 1 here in just a bit. All right. So everything that we just set up in the default account section is not set in stone. So you could come back in and change these fields at any time. And the best way to do that is through the settings here, and then click into default accounts, and it'll bring you back to this page. Some other cool features on this settings tab to pay attention to are if you click into manage accounting fields here, you can also always, let's say your Tribe account changes. You want to add additional accounts, or you want to delete some accounts here. You can easily upload the new information in 2 ways. You can either import a new IAF file, or you can click edit here. And then you can click on this first option where it says update options via CSV, upload options. It'll give you a download of your current list, and you can make any edits to that, save it, and upload it back into RAMP, and it'll show the changes, and it'll add, any accounts you added, or it'll delete any accounts that you deleted. So those are your 2 ways. Just make sure that if you do decide to use this import a new IAF file option, you import all 4 of these again together, or else it's only going to import 1 over the other 3. All right. You could also do this with each of these fields. Also, if we go back here, you'll see some other options where it says which option should be visible or renamed, and also number 3 here with who should see what. So when it comes to option 2 here, this is a great way to hide accounts from the entire company for coding purposes. So only the owner, the admin, and the bookkeeper role will be able to see these hidden accounts. That's essentially saying, if you require employee coding from your employees, they don't need to see the AP account in there. They don't need to see your liability accounts because those codes won't be used for them. So you can hide those from them, and for your finance team, if they're admins or if they're bookkeepers, they'll be able to see those hidden fields. Same thing goes with who should see what. So RAMP allows you to create rules to dynamically change the field options which are available to your employees using conditional filtering. So if you are having your employees code their own transactions, this is a super, super duper great feature to use. Just a quick heads up though, it is a part of our RAMP Plus plan. So it is not a part of the free platform that we have with RAMP, it's part of the paid version. All right. So just so you can see what this looks like, if we click on create workflow, we can create some if conditions here where if, let's say the department is engineering, then I want them to see only, let's see, meals. I want them to see meals. Let's see if we have one for travel. We got a travel expense here. And let's do SAS. We have SAS, maybe it's dues. There you go. All right, so now we click save and close. Now, if anyone is in the engineering department making a transaction and they go to code their own transaction because you required it as a part of the expense policy, they will only be able to see these codes in particular to code with. All right, so now you click save workflow, and now that is set. All right. So we have now successfully completed the accounting setup. Let's go ahead and walk through how to code your expenses. All right, so when you are looking at this entire accounting tab here, you will notice that all transactions that do not have this category filled out, it is highlighted in this red-orange color. And in order to mark a transaction as ready to export over, this column is a requirement to be filled out. All right, so you can simply select the drop down here and select what the transaction would get coded as. But this accounting category field is your chart of accounts. These are your GL codes that you want to code your transactions with. All right, so let's pick one that pops up a few times. Okay, let's do this one. So this Asana transaction, right? This is, SaaS and software for me. So I'm going to put this under dues and subscriptions. Now, before I click on this, I can easily go ahead and code each of these one by one, but that's going to take a lot of time. So one of the ways that Ramp allows you to close your books faster is just by automating your accounting. So we'll do that by offering the ability to set accounting rules so that you can code your transactions in bulk. So you don't even have to do it one by one anymore. So best way to create these rules that'll code transactions for you is to hover over to this little lightning bolt. If you click into that and then you click show more options, this will show you all the different rules that you can create. So right now we're checked off with the merchant rule. This is saying that anytime the merchant Asana comes in as a transaction, it'll always, without a doubt, get coded to dues and subscriptions for you. So you don't even need to manually code this. Then we have a category rule, which is slightly more broad. So this SaaS and software rule is based off of Visa's MCC codes as we're in the Visa network. So Asana told Visa, hey, we fall under SaaS and software, so that's our category, and that's what Ramp pulls for this option here. And if you were to set this SaaS and software rule up with dues and subscriptions, it means that anything that falls under SaaS and software will get coded to dues and subscriptions. So that means, Typeform, Basecamp, LinkedIn, Monday, Slack, all of those will get coded for you to dues and subscriptions. Now, as we continue going down the list here, it gets a bit more granular. So bookkeeping over here that you see, it's a department rule, and New York City is a location rule. So this is based off of the card holder. So if you set a department rule, it'll always get coded for bookkeeping to dues and subscriptions. This is good to use if you have department-specific coding. Location is good for that reason too, if you have location-specific coding. And then this is our strongest rule here, which will override all the rules above. This is our card rule. This is saying that every transaction that takes place on this one team expenses card, it's always going to get coded to dues and subscriptions. This rule is good for if you have vendor-specific cards, as we suggest. So you create cards for Asana, for LinkedIn, and only those transactions happen on those cards. This is great for that. All right. So for this case, we're going to do a category rule for SaaS and software and map all of our SaaS and software transactions to dues and subscriptions. So we'll click create rule, and then you'll see the magic go into effect as soon as it updates. There you go. So now all these transactions under SaaS and software have been coded for me. I didn't need to lift more than, a finger to code just one and set up that rule. And now it's all done for me. So look at how many transactions have been coded. So this saved me so much time from having to manually go through and do it all. All right. Now, one more cool thing about a transaction that you can do is split it. So if you ever have to split a transaction to different codes, you can simply click into the transaction and split it, or just click on these three dots and click split transaction. You'll be able to split the categories, the class, the customer job, indicate a memo, add another split, play with the amounts here. So we got, let's say, play with the amount right here. Let's change this to 42, and now you'll see that there's a difference of $2. So we have to make that up. All right. and it'll be green when it's exactly at the amount it should be. Only thing to note here is that you cannot split transactions in bulk. You'll have to do it one at a time. All right. I know we went over quite a few things, so before we walk through exporting transactions, does anyone have any questions? If not, give me a little thumbs up and we'll move forward. All right, looking good then. So with exporting transactions, the goal is for this entire accounting tab to be blank, which means that all transactions have been coded and exported over to QuickBooks Desktop. So once you export a transaction, it will disappear from this page, and you don't want any transactions uncoded lingering here by the end of your month-end close. You want all of it in QuickBooks already. So now we'll walk through how to code or mark a single transaction as ready versus doing it in bulk. All right, and then we'll walk through the different export types that we have available. So in order to mark a single transaction as ready to export, all you'll have to do is, let's pick one, let's make sure they have a receipt. These little clocks mean that we're waiting on the individuals to submit their receipts. So this one looks good so far. Feel free to code these on your end for your transactions, but I don't need them for my accounting purposes. So I could just click this green checkbox to mark it as ready to export. You'll notice that this disappeared from this tab and the transaction moved over to ready to export. All right, here's the one I just marked. If I need to edit it, I would just click on this and it'll let me choose additional fields. This waiting for cardholder button, this is showing all transactions that still need the cardholder to submit their information for. So this could be a receipt, it could be a memo, it could be coding. It depends on what you require in your expense policy. Now going back to needs review, if you ever need to select transactions in bulk to code, best way, a couple of ways actually, but using these checkboxes is the best way to do that. So this one here will select all the transactions on your page. This Wednesday option here will select all transactions made on that date. And these checkboxes will select the transaction one at a time. All right. You'll also notice that once you start selecting these, you can do code in bulk here. So you could edit the accounting category in bulk. You can do any of these fields in bulk, up to you. All right. So now let's go ahead and show you what it looks like to export these transactions. So right now we have two exports. Let me actually get rid of this one. Click the edit, unmark as ready. So now I move back to the needs review tab and is no longer here. This one looks good to me, so now I'm going to click export all. Once I click that, it opens one more window of review before I make any exports. And this is where you could do all your review needs. And if you want to edit any transaction, all you'll have to do is deselect this green checkbox and it'll come back here. Also, one thing to note is that transactions do export over fully coded, so there's no need to take any action on the other side. But if you ever do want to update a transaction after it's been coded, you'll need to do that in QuickBooks Desktop, given that RAMP has already passed over that information. All right. So now we can export this as an IAF file, but if we click on Export As, you'll see that you have other options here. Export as QBD file is a CSV of just the credits only and some other fields that you use to code, but export as journal entries shows you both the credits and debits, and it's a bit more robust. All right. However, as QuickBooks Desktop users, I highly recommend, and I cannot emphasize this enough, please go with the IIF route when it comes to importing your transactions over to QuickBooks, because it is the most simple one. And you guys have all know that as well, since you guys are QuickBooks users yourselves. That is the most simple one, where it's a bit more manual if you decide to pull in a CSV or Excel into QuickBooks. All right, so we'll click Export IIF. And now this is in our downloads, and you'll get fun little confetti for a job well done. All right, and now let's see. Let's do a little refresh here. And now we'll export as a CSV and as a QBD file, and also as a journal entry file, so you can see the difference. So let's pull this one, mark ready. We'll click export, and this time we'll click export as QBD file. There you go. And now we're going to do this one, and we'll export as journal entries. All right, now let's open them up so you can see them side by side. All right. So we have it here, and let me pull the second one over as well. All right, and let's increase the font here so you don't have to inch forward to your computer. There you go. Okay, so to the left here, we have the QBD export, and to the right, we have our journal entries export. The reason why I'm able to tell them apart right away is because this journal entries one has 2 lines. This one shows us both the credits and debits, which you can find in column Y and Z over here. So we got the debit going for this one transaction, and we got the credit going for the same transaction here. You'll notice that this has a bit more information, whereas this one here, the QBD file, shows only the credits and a bit more limited information. All right. So now let's go back to QuickBooks and import our IIF file. So for that, you'll go to File, you'll go to Utilities, you'll go to Import, and then you'll click on IIF Files. It's going to prompt you to close everything. You can press OK. Now you'll click Import IIF, and you'll select the IIF file here, so open. Awesome, so now this is showing that your files have successfully imported, or your transactions, with the list being the vendor and transactions being the vendor. It's the transaction itself. So now we'll click Done, and you'll be able to find that transaction by going to Vendors, Vendor Center. Let's make this bigger. And then you could filter by ramp card, which is the liability account, and you'll see the transaction here. If we double click into it, you'll see further detailed information. You'll see the memos filled out with the cardholder's name, their team, their location, and the name of their card. You'll see it coded here, the amount here, and you're good to go from here. So that's all you have to do to upload your or import your file into QuickBooks. This is particularly for the IIF route. With the QBD or journal entries route, a bit more manual here, where you could always go to File, go to Utilities, Import, and then do Excel files. and then you could click yes here because it's going to add, ask you if you want to add or edit multiple list entries. And then you'll have to manually put it in. All right, so lots of copy and pasting here. That's why I highly recommend going with the IIF route if you could. Also, no categorization step is required on the QuickBooks side as it's already been done in the accounting tab in RAM, and no separate import of vendors is required either because it comes with the import here. All right, so now going back to RAM. All right, we have a few more things to go over here. Now that we've made our first export, you'll see that if you click on these three buttons, there's an export history button. If you click on that, it'll show you all the transactions that you've exported. So who did that and when. And if you click into it, you could always re-download the file. All right, awesome. So now let's explore how to enable employee coding and downloading receipts, because as you saw, it doesn't pull over the receipts to QuickBooks Desktop, all right? So if you do want to export receipts only for your own company records, you can do so in the Transactions or Expenses tab, which is right here. You'll stick to Transactions. I highly recommend putting a date range here, preferably previous statement, because that way you know all of your transactions have closed and they're ready in QuickBooks, they're ready to go, or they've already gone. And so I would recommend going with this. If you don't select a date range, it's going to give you information for all of the transactions that you see here. And this tab is for historical purposes only. So it holds, transactions made in your entire company from day one. So that's why you should always go with a date range when you're pulling receipts, so you're not pulling each of them over and over again. Once you select your date range, you'll click on this little download button, and then you'll click on download.zip receipts. This will send you a zip file via email, and you'll just click on the zip file and open it right up, and you'll see the receipts in folders by card holder, and you can access them there. All right. Now, the last item that we are going to go over is how to enable employee coding now that we've connected our accounting. So to enable employee coding, we will want to click on the settings button here on the bottom left. We'll go to expense policy and then transaction requirements. And from here, we'll click on this little scratch pad. All right, so from here, you are going to require receipts and memos. $75 is in accordance with IRS standards. I'm going to go ahead and also require memos for everything here. And then now you may be seeing these fields, which you did not see before prior to connecting accounting. But if you want your employees to code their own transactions, you can select any of the fields here where they will be able to code. So they could code by the chart of accounts here. I want them to code all of them. Let's do all refunds too. And the rest are fine. All right, then we'll just click Save Changes. This is asking if I want to send them a little email about the changes, or if I want it to be a nice little surprise. So we could do surprise by clicking Don't Notify. All right, and that's it. So this does wrap up our session today.